Childhood may be a trying time, but it's considerably more difficult when you're locked up. Here are the top 10 kids who grew up in jail. But before we get started, be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos. Number 10. James Fairweather. James Fairweather was a typical teenager who fantasized about violence and aspired to be a murderer. But, unlike the other kids, James was dead serious about being a serial killer. He demonstrated this by brutally murdering 2 individuals and attempting to murder a third. He stabbed a mentally handicapped man over 100 times as his first victim. He then stabbed a woman in a park to death before stabbing himself. When police caught him after the second murder, they had to let him go due to a lack of evidence. His grandmother calls him a monster. After finally being imprisoned, James claimed that he intended to kill at least another 15 people. Number 9. Michael Hernandez. Most serial killers do not begin murdering individuals until they are much older. Typically, they begin by torturing animals, committing arson, and other minor offenses before progressing to full-fledged murder. Michael wanted to start killing people as soon as possible. He savagely stabbed his best friend to death in the school bathroom when he was only 14 years old, and he had plans to kill many more students. After being apprehended, Michael told authorities that he wished to become one of the most famous serial killers of all time. He was condemned to life in prison without the possibility of release when he was just 15 years old. Number 8. Alyssa Bustamante. Alyssa Bustamante showcased to the world just how cruel and violent a 15-year-old girl can be. Unlike most youngsters who intentionally hurt others, there is no proof that Alyssa was abused in any way. Nobody knows what went wrong with her, but it was a complete mental collapse. When police apprehended her and began an investigation, they learned that Alyssa had dug many graves and was planning on committing more murders. She was imprisoned. Number 7. Jasmine Richardson. Jasmine was a typical 12-year-old girl who was brainwashed by a deranged 23-year-old teenager whom she was dating. That boyfriend, Jeremy Steinke, is a violent maniac who mistook himself for the 300-year-old werewolf. Jasmine's parents attempt to break their relationship, but it was too late. Jasmine was completely under his command. They went on a savage murdering spree that included Jasmine's parents and her 8-year-old brother. They also murdered those who stood in the way of their relationship. Unfortunately, she had been in prison at such a young age. Number 6. Harley Miguel Robinson. Robinson is one of only a few teenagers in history to face the death penalty. He was on his way to becoming one of history's most prolific serial killers. He forcefully raped and murdered 3 women at the age of 17. He was apprehended after returning the small girl he had taken to her home, where they were waiting. Robinson even attempted to kill the cops, but he was immediately captured. The judge saw the boy's dangerous potential and sentenced him to death. Number 5. Cindy and Shirley. These 2 females are both victims of really awful views and grew up in terrible homes. They became close friends almost immediately after meeting because of the abuse they have both experienced. Unfortunately, persons who wear abuse frequently become aggressive and abusive. This is precisely what occurred to these 2 adolescent girls. One day, Cindy and Shirley were visiting an elderly woman's home for whatever reason. Shirley was talking to the lady when Cindy walked in from the kitchen and threw a knife at her. Shirley instantly began slashing and murdering the woman inside her own home. When they were apprehended, police discovered proof that the 2 had intentions to kill even more people, but they were captured before they could. Number 4. Craig Price. He claimed his first victim when he was 13 years old. After stealing into a victim's home, Price dabbed his 8-year-old neighbor to death and escaped unnoticed. A few years after this heinous murder, Price went on a killing spree, killing 3 more people in his area. Following this, he was apprehended by police and swiftly imprisoned. The frightening thing about him was that he simply wanted to kill people regardless of who or how he was. Number 3. Thompson and Venables. It isn't those 2 children that are as disturbed as Robert Thompson and John Venables. They became buddies and began murdering together. Because of their age, these 2 made international headlines. Thompson and Venables were 10 and 11 years old when they murdered James Bulger, a 3-year-old boy. Following the murder, they positioned James and his body on rail tracks so that the train would run over them. Strangely, both of them were freed from prison when they were 18 years old. Despite this, Venables was arrested again and is now behind the bars. Thompson, on the other hand, is now a free man. Number 2. John Silva. He kidnapped and brutally murdered his friend when he was 15 years old. He then put his body in a septic tank. Because of the severity and thorough preparation that went into this act, the judge determined that Silva was too insane to be released. He was not only sentenced to life in prison, but he is also not eligible for parole. He spent much of his youth and now will spend the rest of his adult life in prison. Number 1. Mary Bell. Mary Bell is one of the most well-known child murderers in the United Kingdom. Her first murder took place when she was only 10 years old. She suffocated when her 3-year-old child died. She then murdered another little kid by carving the letter M into his stomach, as though she were signing her name for everyone to recognize her. Mary had been the victim of brutal abuse throughout her youth. It was discovered. She was incarcerated in jail. She was sentenced to a mental institution after a length of time because she was unable to stand trial. So, guys, that was it for this video. What did you think about our video? Let us know in the comments section below. And if you are new to our channel, be sure to subscribe and ring that notification bell to get notified about our latest videos. Thanks for watching.